Hey, welcome to Caspio Live. This is your host, Ned. Let me know if you can hear me okay before I begin today's session on building a PTO type application. So if you are able to hear me okay, let's get that housekeeping item out of the way so that we can commence loud and clear. All right, welcome. So we have, hey Judith, welcome back. Good to see you as well. Today we are building a simpler version of a PTO request. I didn't want to build anything sophisticated. It's just a simple employee can make a request. We do a calculation on how many days they're taking off, and then the manager can log in and either approve, reject, or I don't know, cancel the request. So simple little workflow, and I did add a fancy-ish formula to calculate the number of days. We also subtract the weekends because we don't want to count those. If people are requesting, let's say, a whole month off, we want to subtract the weekends from the total PTO. Can you hear me? Okay, excellent. All right, so let's go ahead and begin. I don't think today's session is going to take a full hour. We only have 4 app pages to build and a couple of data parts. I would say the most challenging part is the formula and how we calculate just the weekdays and exclude the weekends. But I will break it down line by line so that you understand why we subtract, why we add certain SQL formula in there and how it subtracts from the total number of requested days. Well, now you can use this app if you build it for your team. So, and then you'll be able to request those days off. Better late than never. I'm sure more days off will be coming. So. All right, let me give you a quick demo. I always like to show you the app first before we build it. So now I am logged in as the employee, and as the employee, I can see all of my previous days that I've taken off or previous requests. We have just a single tab navigation menu item. Of course, you can have multiple depending on what you're developing. But as the employee, I can request time off, and then I can choose my start date. Let's say it's today. And then tomorrow, that counts 2 days. So we should get total of 16 hours requested. If I were to, let's say, go until December 3rd, I believe that should be 48 hours because we're excluding the weekend. So if you look at here and if we count, let's go back to November. So 8, 16, 24. We take out the Saturday and Sunday, 32, 40, 48. Okay. So that is total of 6 days. 6 times 8, 48. So we take 48 hours, and then you can do a request type, personal, reason, something here, random. We hit submit, and we should be able to see it here in the background. I can also sort this so the most recent one shows up first, but I didn't do that. So now that the employee has requested the time off, we can log in as the manager. I have to use a different browser because they're using the same directory, and I think here I also didn't sort. We'll see it here at the bottom. I really should sort so this appears at the very top, but that's okay. And now as a manager, I can click on edit and have the ability to maybe even modify the start and end date. I can see total number of days requested, reason, and then for the status, as the manager, I can either approve, reject, or cancel this request. So that's the app. Very, very simple. Of course, you might want to expand upon that depending on your organization's needs. So let's go ahead and, oh, this is King Capo, by the way. I'm not sure why it's showing a different, yeah, I'm noticing the same thing. I don't know why that's the case. Maybe it's a new YouTube setting. Yeah, but welcome back, King Capo. Thanks for attending the live stream. I do appreciate that. I know you're here on a bi-weekly basis, so thank you for that. All right, let's build it. Let's go inside Caspio now. I have all of my tables prepared, as always, and I will walk you through every single table along with building that formula. I will paste the formula and just explain line by line what each line means inside it. But first, we're going to take a look at the request table. And inside the request table, we have the primary key, request ID. We have employee ID. I just abbreviate that as EID because we want to be able to stamp the employee's ID that's making that request, right? And all of that is done behind the scenes, okay? Then we have our start date and end date, and then we have total days. Well, this really should say total hours that the employee is requesting off. So let's rename that. All right, so then instead of text 255, we're going to select formula because we're trying to calculate from start date to end date. And then over here on the right, look at the edit link and then just paste the formula, and I will explain what the formula is doing. So the first thing we do is use isNull, which is a math expression, right? So we group everything between that parenthesis and this closing parenthesis with a comma 0 so that inside our table cell, we don't want to have a blank value. We want to replace it with a 0 if it's blank. So if the calculation hasn't happened yet, I want to have a 0 in the table. Okay, because otherwise we can't really do additional computations if there's nothing inside that cell. So we always want to replace it with a 0. Then we begin with date diff. So date difference, you'll find that right over here. And if you read the instructions here, you'll kind of be able to understand what we need to calculate, but I will make it even simpler for you. Date diff day, start date, comma, end date plus 1. So we're basically taking and calculating total number of days requested at the very beginning. And we add a plus 1 because we want to calculate the start and end date. So if, let's say you requested it today, and tomorrow, really that will count 1, but we have to add plus 1 so it counts both for start date and end date, because that's 2 days that are being requested off. Okay, because the date difference is only calculating the difference between start and end date, which normally is 1. So you always have to add a plus 1 to calculate both the start date and the end date, okay, so that we get 2 days. Then we're going to subtract, okay, because we have to subtract the weekends. And we do date difference week, start date, comma, end date times 2 because there are 2, like Saturday and Sunday, there are 2 weeks. There's on the weekend you have 2 days, so we have to subtract 2 days from the week. And let's say you requested 3 weeks off. Well, we know that 3 times 2 is 6, right? Because in those 3 weeks we have 2 weekends, and that's 6, and we want to be able to subtract that. Okay, so we subtract those 6 days, which are the weekends. And then from some special cases, we have plus case when date part day start date equals 1, then 1 else 0. What this means on like let's say you start taking days off on a Sunday, which is a 1. So if it's a Sunday, subtract that, else don't subtract it. Okay. Same thing with 7, Saturday. So the way it counts, 1 is always going to equal to a Sunday, and then 7 is always going to equal to a Saturday. Right, so if it equals to Saturday, subtract it. If it does not equal to Saturday, don't subtract anything. That's why we put else 0. And same thing up here. If it equals to Sunday, if your starting date is a Sunday, then subtract that, else don't subtract it. And then finally, we times the whole thing by 8 because there are 8 working hours in a day. Okay, so hopefully I explained that correctly. If anybody wants this formula, happy to go ahead and just copy and paste this in the chat window. I wonder what it's going to... Oh, no, I can't because I'm limited to 255 characters. If anybody wants this formula, you can always send me an email. Let me just provide my email in the chat window, and I will email it back to you. Although I believe I did a video recently on formula fields. If you want to watch that video, I also have it available there too for you to copy. All right, so let's verify the formula. It's a valid formula. Click apply and save the table. Proceed. And then we have request type. That's going to be a simple lookup. We have reason, text 64,000. Type out the reason why you're taking days off. Status is also going to be a simple lookup. And date submitted is a timestamp so that we know when that request was submitted. Let's take a look at our lookup tables. Oops, wrong table. Request type. We have vacation, sick, and personal. And then for status, we have, I believe, pending, approved, rejected, and canceled. And finally, I use the same directory for all of my Caspio live streams. That way, I don't have to keep building new directories for every single live stream. I just use the same one across every single app that I develop. Okay. All right, so those are my tables. Let's go down to roles and set up our permissions. We're not going to use the public access because there's nothing public to build in this application. It's completely internal. So I have to set up a role for my employees. And we will use our directory, Caspio Live. All right, and then as for permissions for the employees, we want them to be able to create requests. They should be able to read all data and update all data if they want to. However, we are going to set up custom permissions on the request table because we want the employees just to be able to see their own requests, not some other employee's request. So we add custom permissions on the request table. Okay, we hit add. And then this will basically override that. So you don't really have to worry about if it says, well, actually, no, you do, because if you do custom permission, you still have to set this to yes. Okay, because the custom permissions will override global permissions. So then under all records, we use user's own records and we select EID, which is the employee's ID, just so that they're able to see their own requests that are associated with their employee ID. And then if you want them to update, make sure you have this set up as well so they only update their own data. And finally, if you want employees to be able to delete entries, you're going to modify this setting as well. I'm good with everything else. I will save now. And for my users, I will just move Sally Smith to be the employee. Okay, inside that role. And then let's set up our second role, manager. And we will use the same directory. And for permissions, I will just set all of this to yes, because as a manager, I should be able to see all records across every single employee, update all the data if I want to, and be able to create as well. And then for users, we will just simply add myself as the manager. All right, let's go to our designer tab, and now we're going to be able to set up our application like we've done in the past. This is where you see your build in real time in a preview setting. The first thing we want to do is probably collapse the public segment because we're not building anything public. Okay, everything is going to be behind the password. And then for the employees and managers, we have to create our app pages. And you just have to kind of think about how you want to organize your navigation menu. So when the employee logs in, what are they going to be able to click on? What pages are you going to need? And this is a very simple build. What I need for the employees to see is my requests. So when they log in, I want them to be able to see a page that shows them all of their requests that they've submitted in the past. And I also want them to be able to create a new request. So maybe let's just call it a new request. Okay. Now, if you wanted to, you could have this be in two different navigation menu items. Like they can see my requests on one page, this if they click on that link, and then they can also see new requests in a navigation if you want to separate this in two different app pages. However, I am a big fan of using overlay windows, okay, which I no longer really need to see this navigation menu item. I will hide it. But the way I'm going to get to that page is by looking at my requests on this page, and there will be a button here in the toolbar, or a header, I mean, that I can click on that's going to open up this overlay window, which is going to be like a pop-up. It's going to have that effect. And it really just speeds things up in terms of user experience. And I would recommend doing it this way, just because it's faster, it looks better too. All right, so let's build that submission form to allow employees to add requests. So we're going to click on Add Elements. Let's go with the submission form, request table. And we're likely going to need all of these fields. Let me just think for a second. Why am I not? Oh, is it because? Oh, I will need to add total hours as a calculated field in my form. So that's fine. Let's select all of our fields. Everything is good. We're going to hit next. Employee ID, what we want to do here is hide that field. No need for that to be visible. So we make that field hidden. And then we insert the parameter authentication user ID. So this basically knows whoever is logged in, if it's Sally, if it's Ken, if it's Raj, if it's Jensen, if it's Ali, whoever is logged into the application, it automatically knows who you are and it's going to stamp your ID upon submission. We make that field hidden. Then we have our start date. That's going to be a required field. We have our end date, required field. Request type, required field. That's going to be a drop-down because we have a lookup table of all of our request types. Okay. Reason is going to be a text area. Maybe you make that field optional. Usually it's optional. And then for status, we have a drop-down as well. We have a lookup table that contains all of our status options. And that's it. Once you're done, this is going to be a required field as well. And then once you're done, you are actually, we're not done yet. Let's go ahead and add virtual field. We'll move this underneath my end date. And inside this virtual field, I'm going to change this to be a calculated value. The reason why is because I also want to paste my formula here as well. So it calculates in real time. So as the user is adding the start and end date, we can actually see that on the form even before the submission, which is, adds another level of, I guess, excitement for the users to be able to see. It's still going to be in the back end because we have the formula in the table, but it's also just as pleasing and exciting to see it on the front end, how the calculation works. Maybe they made a mistake. I'm not actually requesting 48 hours. That's a mistake. Let me look at my dates again. And let's see, appearance. Wait, what? Let me verify my formula. Hang on one second. Well, for some reason, I'm getting an incorrect formula now, which is weird. Start date, end date, start date, week, day, date difference. Subtract is null. There's no mistake in my formula. It's the same formula I used in the table. Let me just... Start date, end date, start date, end date, end date, date. Unless, let me try to remove is null. Okay, well that's interesting. Very interesting. I'm not going to try to troubleshoot this during our Caspio live, but that is very odd. It should work, and for some reason it's not. Calculated field. Total hours requested. Very strange. Let me cancel. Let's try this. Let me grab the one from my actual app that I built. Give me a second. I hate when this happens, but it does happen a lot more than you would believe. You've seen it happen to me during these live streams quite a bit. Let me see. Oh, right, because it needs to use a runtime field. I keep forgetting about that. Now when you're adding your formulas here inside the calculated value for the calculated field on the data part, you have to put runtime field. Keep forgetting about that. So I'll just grab this one because I'm using the same exact field names. I am. Okay, so let me copy that. Now let's cancel. Close that tab. Fortunately, I now have to build the form again. Requests. Let's move all the fields. EID will be a hidden field. Insert. Well, at least we found the solution, thankfully. That's going to be a required field. That will be a required field. Request type is a drop-down. Lookup table, request type. Okay. Reason will be a text area. Did I make this field required? No, I did not. And then for status is going to be a drop-down, required field, lookup table, status. Okay, and now let's add our virtual field. Move that underneath the end date. That's going to be a calculated value. total hours requested, and I will paste. So just want to make sure everybody knows when you insert parameters, you have to insert now as a runtime field. That's the difference between bridge and flex. Because before when I pasted my formula in, it would just say field without the runtime. So runtime is needed now inside the formula. So let's hope crosser. Yep, formula is valid. And now we can click save. And here's our form. I do like to line up my buttons to be side by side. So I will just click on the app page, manage, and put the submit button ahead of our close button like that. All right, perfect. So you will see later on when you actually start adding your dates, how the formula calculates. For now, I will just name my data part. That's always important. Let's name this employees, new request. And that's all I'm going to do. Next thing we're going to create is the ability to search and see the requests. So let's build our search form. Put here to the left. Based off of the request table. And maybe we want to search based on the person's name, request type, and status. Do I need to search based on request type if it's vacation, personal time? Yeah, maybe. We'll just include it anyway. All right, so for EID, which is the employee ID, we're just going to rename the label to say employee, and then you can use this to be a drop-down, lookup table, link back to your directory, and then just pull the full name for display. So in the first drop-down, you will see the actual full name of the employee, but field for value right over here still needs to be the ID because behind the scenes, it's still the ID that's stamped in the table. But you will see the full name as opposed to the ID. Okay. Then we have request type. So once again, that's going to be a drop-down, lookup table request type. All right. And then for status drop-down, lookup table, status. None. All right, let's hit save. And this will become our filtering form. I will just name my data part. Employees, filter requests. I will add a heading, maybe just filter. And that's it. Now let's build the results page. Put that right over here. Requests. And for the results, let's go ahead and display the start date, end date, total hours, request type, reason, status, and submitted date. I mean, all of these are going to be valuable to see on the results page. So let's click next. We have our start date, end date, total hours requested, request type. Reason is going to be a long text. So if you're ever dealing with long text on a tabular report, I always recommend to go to your appearance tab and just simply use a fixed width. I like 250 pixels. It's going to give you a short answer in your cell, but when you hover over, it's going to give you the long text so that you can read what's actually inside that cell. It has a nice effect. And then status and submitted date. I'm good with that. Let's click save. All right, let's name our data part. Employees, request results. And we'll just say results for the heading. Now let's connect these two data parts because the filtering has to work correctly. So we select our results page, we set the filters. Let's create the first one based off of the employee name. So that's going to be EID is equal to data part field. It's going to be my requests, filter requests, EID. Okay, and we hit save. Next filter, these are all drop down, so they're all going to be equal to. So request type is equal to data part field, my requests, request type, and last but not least, we have status is equal to data part field, my requests, status, and click save. All right, now that we have our filters created, every time you search, you're going to be able to see the correct results. The last thing we want to do on the employee side is to connect our overlay window. So on this page, I am going to add a button up here. You will see header controls. We click add, and let's call this new request. Action. Open the app page. So these are your app pages. Let's open the app page. overlay window, you're going to see this icon here. This is usually in reference to the overlay window, this type of an icon compared to a regular app page. So you select new request, and label for your button is going to be new request. Hit save, and there's your button. Okay, don't click inside the preview mode. It's not going to work. Okay, you have to deploy the page before that button works. But the idea here is when you click on that button, it's going to open up this overlay window which contains your submission form. All right, and that's it on the employee side. We're done. Okay, let's quickly build out everything for the manager side, which is really just 2 app pages as well. We're going to build maybe review or manage requests. And then we also want the ability to edit request. And the edit request will be an overlay window. And let's build out manage requests. So just to speed things up, we don't really have to build a search form. You can if you want to, just like what we did here. Okay, search and results. But let's just have one thing that I want to make sure I do correctly on this one is when you select that data part, I want to sort my data for the most recent to appear at the very top. So you're going to scroll down here for sorting options. Let's sort by field. Okay. And what we're going to do is instead of using start date, we're going to add a new field, date submitted or submitted date. And I want to sort that Z to A so that the most recent submission appears at the very top. And then for manage requests, let's just build a tabular report based off of the request table. And we want to be able to see who submitted it, start date, and all of these are probably going to be needed. Click next. Just going to rename this label so it says employee. It's a bit more clear. Here's my reason field, appearance, fixed width, 250 pixels, and then hit save. All right, let me name my data part. We're going to call this maybe, manager. PTO requests. Let's actually add one more, employee PTO requests. All right, so there's no data in here yet. We're going to start adding some data here in just a moment. All right, and then let's go ahead and just modify the navigation menu because just like in the employee side, the way you're going to get to edit requests, let me edit my segment and hide edit requests from the navigation menu. The way you're going to get to that page is by clicking inside the results. There's going to be a button for each record to edit, and then it's going to open up this overlay window. So let's build the overlay submission form. That's going to be an update form based off of the request table. And the information we want to be able to update is the start date, end date. We want to be able to see total hours requested, update request type, see the reason, update status, and there's nothing that we need to do with the submitted date. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Start date, I want, as a manager, to be able to modify that. Okay, that makes sense to me. End date, I want to be able to modify as well, just in case the employee added an incorrect start or end date. However, if you want to get really fancy and if you want to build out a much more better workflow, I guess, you could have where, let's say the employee submits the start and end date and it's wrong. You can have the manager input a status such as review submission or rejected, and then the manager inputs the reason why it was rejected, and then it goes back to the employee to fix the initial submission mistakes. They make this changes again, they resubmit, goes back to the manager again, and now the manager can either approve or reject again, add more reason why it was rejected. So you can have a workflow going back and forth, or you can build something simple like this that I have created today. It's up to you how you want the workflow to go. Then we have our total hours requested. That will be display only. Request type, drop down, lookup table, request type. Going to be a required field. Reason, probably going to be display only. I don't think the manager needs to modify the reason on behalf of the employee. That's not needed. And then for status, we have a drop down as well. Lookup table, Is that status? Yeah, status. And required field. And I think I'm happy with that. We're going to hit save here. Okay, we don't see anything because there's no sample data to preview. I'm just going to name my data part manager edit PTO request. All right, save it. I will need to align my button. I don't see an update button here because there's no sample data, but just click on the app page level, hit manage, and just move the update button above the close button like that. And you will eventually see the update button, but because there's no sample data in my table, you don't see that button here. Now, one thing that you definitely want to do here is set the filter on the update form, because when you click on update, or when you click on the edit button for each record, the app needs to know what request are you actually clicking for. So you set the filter, which will be the request ID is equal to data part field. Select manage requests because that's how you're getting to your edit form from this page. And then you simply just choose request ID. So if the request ID is equal to request ID, now the application knows that you're updating the correct request. And you will see, I'll explain that once we publish everything and we deploy it. Now you go back to manage requests, and on that data part, you're going to go to record controls. And you're going to type in maybe just edit. Open the app page, which is our overlay window, and the label for the button will be edit. And you are officially done with the whole app. How long did that take? 30 minutes. I always like to tell people when you get in the hang of using the Caspio system, I built this app in literally like 10, 15 minutes. This whole app, 10, 15 minutes. That's how long it took me. But because I have to explain things in these live streams, it takes a little bit longer, okay? But once you get into the hang of things on how the system works, the workflow, clicking buttons here and there, you will be just as fast. And now, let's deploy everything. So we go to deployment. I will just close the one that I used earlier. So we will do a bulk deployment, deploy these two app pages, and for management, deploy these two app pages. Let me close my Firefox. I'll have to reopen it. Okay, if everything goes well, let's go ahead and log in as the employee first, which is Sally Smith. Okay, so the system keeps me logged in unless I log out, and because I'm using the same directory, as you can see, I am logged inside my application. If you go to your applications, okay, so this is the one that I built that I demoed earlier. Okay, so in Caspio, you can use the same directory across multiple applications in your account. Okay, but I'm using this directory for the one that I demoed at the beginning of today's class and the one that we already built, because again, it's the shared directory across multiple applications. And this is the one that I'm logged in. All right, so no results found, right? So let's make a request to Sally Smith. Let's go with start date today, end date tomorrow. That should be 16. Perfect. Request type is sick. I anticipate being sick those days. Aha. Status, let's say pending. And then we'll hit submit. Actually, for status here, this needs to be a hidden field using a default value. What I mean by that is like there's no reason for the employee to say approved or rejected. That should be up to the admin, right? So to fix that, something I should have done is when you make a request as the employee for status, this really should be a hidden field and using the default value of pending, like that. There. Now let's reload. And when you make a new request, it's a hidden field, but automatically when you submit, it'll be pending. Okay. And then the admin or manager can change from pending to a different status. All right, let's make one more submission as Sally. Let's go with the 26th, and then we'll go into December, maybe 26th. 184 hours that you're requesting. Hopefully the formula works right. It should. I checked multiple times across multiple weekends, but this many days, 184 hours requested. Request type personal. NA, we'll hit submit. And we have 2 requests. And you can see how sorting works. This was the most recent submission. And it appears at the very top. All right, now let's go back to designer and let's go to deployment. And for manager, we're going to just copy the link. I have to use Firefox. I cannot use the same directory or the same browser. I'm sorry, because I'm using the same directory for employees and managers. I would have to log out. I would have to log out as Sally Smith and then log in as myself. But we don't want that. We want to keep the application open for both employees. All right, let's paste that link. And let's log in as Ned. In the real world, you know, a manager and the employee will use 2 different computers. It wouldn't be an issue if they're using the same browser, but I'm in the same session here, so I can't use Chrome for both employee and managers in the same session. So because they're using 2 different computers, 2 different IPs, you know, it's gonna work just fine. All right, so here we are logged in as the manager, and I can see these 2 requests that came in from this employee. I always forget to do this in my live streams, but let's replace the ID of the employee with the actual name. So to do that, you're going to go to your tables, click on relationships, go into app relationships, and for the requests, just move the user ID to EID and display the full name like that. So what that does in your child table, which is the requests, instead of seeing the employee ID, we are displaying the full name from the parent table, which is your directory. Okay, really nice, nifty feature to make things a little bit better on the UI and UX for the experience on the front end. I don't want to see the ID. That's a long ID. It makes no sense. I just want to see the name, the full name of that user. So now, in our application, we will see Sally Smith. Oh, we do not see Sally Smith for some reason. Why is that? Let's go back to our table. This is the directory. This is the requests. Oh, because I didn't check this box. By checking this box, you're saying use display value on data pages if you're using the Bridge framework and data parts if you're using the Flex framework. Let's make sure it's checked. Okay. All right, so the display value is the full name, okay? And it replaces the EID or employee ID in the related table or the child table of requests. So now we hit save. Yep, that's fine. Save layout, and let's go back to our Firefox, refresh, cross your fingers, and there's Sally Smith. And now as the manager, I can review all of this information that's coming in. You can see I didn't sort my data here. 184 should appear at the very top, and then 16 should be underneath. So let's fix that too, just so that we can be a perfectionist and completionist. So let's go to designer. Let's go to manage requests. Click on the data part. Scroll down here at the very bottom. You will see by field. Remove EID. We don't want that. And then add date submitted. And we want to sort from Z to A. Now, when we go back to Firefox and we reload, we should be able to see 184 first. There we go. Now, as a manager, I see the submissions. I see personal, 184 hours for personal reasons, and you didn't give me a reason. Not sure I like that. So we're going to click edit, and I will say rejected. However, one thing I guess that I should have included in my demo today is the reason why it's rejected. So that would make sense, you know, because the employee needs to know why it was rejected. Maybe the employee needs to know. I don't know. It's up to you how you design the app. But there really should be one more field here in the table that say reason. And then we include that field on the manager's side as to why it was rejected. That would be helpful for the employee to see. So do that. I would do that in my application if you are building this. Okay. All right, let me take a look at my submissions and comments. Sorry, I haven't been tuning into my chat window, so let's take a look. Great formula. Thank you. Big thanks. Nice touch. Turkey brain already. Turkey brain was, I'm guessing that was when it was a mishap with the formula, right? Yeah. My mind is. Plus, I was sick the other night. I had a fever of 101.9 in Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in Celsius, but in Fahrenheit, it was 101.9. I wasn't feeling well. This was literally the night before. I woke up feeling much better, and today I'm back in the full swing of things. But most companies have 15 PTO days. An employee would like to know how many days they are requesting off. Most companies have 15 PTO days. An employee would like to know how many days they're requesting off. I think, I don't know. I don't know how companies work at Caspio. We get certain amount of PTO every year and then carries over if you haven't used it. So it just stacks up. And then even we use, I think our plan is to actually replace our current system with a Caspio built system to do this. But it has the same exact formula what you saw today, where it calculates how many days are you taking off, and then I basically try to copy that system, where you input the reason for status and request type, and it calculates how many hours. And then I got help from ChatGPT a little bit on the formula. Could I have written that formula myself if I spent a long time? Yes, I knew. I mean, I wrote a basic formula, and then I used ChatGPT to find out why I had an invalid formula, and it was off by a very small little detail that I mistyped. But this is the app. If you wanted to build something like that, you can do it very quickly if you follow the video today. Of course, you may want to enhance the workflows a little bit. Maybe you want to add more functionality to it. You're going to replace the logo with your company logo. That's a given. Maybe you want to do a dashboard that shows charts, how many over time, how many hours are people requesting off? Who is the person that's requesting most days off, if you care about that information and that metric. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed today's video or today's live stream. I do appreciate your attendance as always. Without it, there will be no live stream. So as long as you show up and attend, I will always be grateful. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. I will leave the chat running a few more minutes just to see if there are any questions or comments or feedback. And then we will end today's live stream. And happy holidays and Thanksgiving to those who celebrate. So hopefully you eat some good food and feel good. Thank you, King Capo. I appreciate that. And Judith, if you're still here, thanks for joining in. All right, take care, everyone, and I'll see you in 2 weeks' time. I think next live stream we are building. Let me see if my memory still works. I have it already. I just have to push it live. It is building a. Oh, I cannot remember now. Let me let you know what it is, real quick before we sign off for today. It will be a topic on the look. Oh, build a student enrollment and admissions portal where students can enroll, and then the admin will have some functionality in the back so new student applicants are able to enroll. So it's an education type app. All right, that's all from me. Thank you so much and have a great rest of the week, and I'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Take care. Bye-bye.